What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. You're jumping on board today with Striker. I know it's been a little hot minute since our last video, but tax season has started to get a little crazy. So we're going to catch up on some of the news that we've missed over the past week. And we're going to start with Gala Games and their strategy report for 2023. To be honest with you, when Gala Games first launched, I wasn't too big of a fan. You know, the founders' nodes were a little expensive to get into immediately. You know, the idea of running their own layer 1 blockchain to compete against Ethereum at the time, it wasn't something that I was really believing they had a strong chance of success. However, there's been some major changes even over the course of the last year that's really brought my attention back to the platform, and I need to start covering it and paying more attention to it, as it is one of the leaders that's going to survive this bear phase right now in the market and potentially has a chance to explode when we go into the next bull market. So that being said, we're going to go through some of the slides that they've presented, talk a little bit about their updates. I'll give you my personal opinions and what I'm thinking about it. No, for reference, I haven't been following Gala Games for quite a while now. Been obviously hearing about it in the news, but now's the time to really start to dive in deep. So this is going to be one of our first videos in doing that. So to start off with the slides that they have for us here, we're going to go ahead and start with the games aspect of it. Now, they obviously have their three major hitters, right? Townstar, Spider Tanks, and Superior. Townstar, the farming mechanics really weren't an idea, a very fun gameplay idea that I personally enjoy, but I know that is something very popular for more casual players. But what has been interesting to watch is seeing how the team has made adjustments to the game. It's within 6 months, I believe, they suspended their play and earn mechanics, and now we're getting more information on why that is the case. But obviously, their major hitters right now are Spider Tanks and Superior. Spider Tanks, with its ability to rent pretty much tanks from other players to be able to use in the play and earn features and then split the revenue, is pretty fascinating. But what they've done with the honor system, I think, is pretty unique. I get this idea of trying to maintain a stable economy inside the game by managing the inflows and outflows throughout the economy. And I think this honor system has something to it, but it's not refined yet. There's something that still needs to be added into the future. We're going to need to see some more tweaks before we really get to a model that I think can work not only for Gala Games, but for other cryptocurrency Web3 games in the space. But their honor system, I believe, is a very good first attempt. They're going to be incentivizing players to do certain methods to increase your honor, which allows you to withdraw from the ecosystem, to extract value from the ecosystem. So the idea, generally speaking, is that if a player is putting value into the ecosystem, that earns them the right to be able to withdraw from it as well. Something that the publisher and the developers have more control over. Something a little similar to what we're seeing with other games like Undead Blocks, where their perspective is they're managing the inflows into the economy and then letting the outflows happen as they will. So rather than controlling both sides of the token, they're really only controlling one side. And so as we see both of these methods play out, I think we can learn off of both of them, and we're going to see them evolve over time. But Superior is actually the game that really got my attention, that really focused me back onto Gala Games. And the reason why is because you can make the argument that, at least at this point in time, the basic gameplay for Superior is at top caliber in terms of early development and other games in Web3 gaming. The fun factors there, I can completely see a future. It's easy to picture it, where you're going into different matches with multiple, co-op teammates to battle against waves of enemies in this road-like type of architecture. And just even playing it right now, it's fast, it's responsive, it feels fun. I could play it for multiple hours, and that's exactly what we're looking for right now in Web3. So we're going to move forward here to the next slide. They're obviously going to be focusing on the publication, the publisher perspective of the video games industry, which is interesting because crypto has always been brought up as the idea of cutting out the middleman. And some people would say that the publisher was that person that could easily be cut out. As time has progressed and we see how cryptocurrency models evolve in the space, there may be something more to that original thesis that may be shifting, and we're going to cover it as we go through these slides. They're obviously going to be launching out many more games, some more casual than others, some more hardcore, but they even have, a investment fund. I believe it says here that they're expecting to contribute, or they have already contributed 300 million into projects that about half of it has been deployed. So we're going to see them continue to push forward with this path. But the biggest news probably of the year, of 2022 and implications for 2023, is their acquisition of a mobile gaming studio that's producing these games, Meow Match and Dragon Strike. I believe Ember Interactive, I believe, is the name of the studio that was purchased. And here's where it gets really interesting for me. First off, one of the things when we've been developing layer 1 blockchains or other blockchain projects has been, how can you provide value back to the community to be able to incentivize an ecosystem to be built and then iterate on that ecosystem going forward. Gala Games is taking a approach by using the funds that they've already raised and earned to go out and purchase game studios that are earning revenue right now. They're going to be using those purchases and that revenue to incentivize the value that's already within the ecosystem. On top of that, we are going through this transition phase between Web3 and Web2 gaming, and it's hard to see out how players are easily going to be able to get onboarded. In this world of free-to-play, you need to reduce as many barriers for players as possible to be able to get into your game, to be able to experience it so they can make a decision for themselves if they're willing to spend in it. If you're having to go through a whole bunch of hurdles related to creating a wallet, the basics of Web3 tech, then that can put a hindrance in terms of your adoption. And I think Gala Games has fallen into a very interesting strategy that could work here. So generally speaking, they're going to use the revenue that is earned from, Meow Match and Dragon Strike to be able to purchase back or to be able to burn Gala tokens in replacement for their Web2 premium currency, which is called gems in the game. Now, when I heard about this, I immediately downloaded both of the games. I started playing them. Meow Match obviously is, catered to the more female audiences of a younger demographic, while Dragon Strike caters to more younger men, RPG, puzzle based. Both of them are match 3 games, very casual in nature, very time based like normal mobile games are. But the idea here is that in these games that have Web 2 type currencies, which are called gems, Gala Games is going to be using the revenue that they earn from those gems, and I believe they're going to be purchasing back Gala to make it a 1-for-1. So for example, if a player is buying gems, the revenue that's coming in, they're willing to match and use that to burn Gala tokens. Okay, we know for a fact, and Gala has recognized this, and this is an attempt to correct the ship, I guess you could say. They recognize that there are a significant amount of Gala tokens out there, and there needs to be a focus on burning. This is going to be one of their primary focuses on how to burn tokens while also attaching them to the in-game ecosystem and the broader Galaverse and sweep of products and services that they have. So I'm fascinated to see how this plays out, because this could be a really easy way to onboard Web 2 players. Nothing really needs to change from their perspective. They can just simply use fiat to purchase these gems. These gems also burn the Gala token, which incentivizes the Web3 ecosystem. And you can see how these are now linked. And in the future, when future blockchain tech gets implemented into the games, then you can start to focus on letting players make the choice about learning all these extra steps to be able to participate in the Web3 ecosystem. Or they choose to continue playing the game as they see fit, and either way there's a benefit. You have an option of onboarding players, but at worst case scenario, you burn tokens that incentivize the community, the value within the ecosystem. So extremely unique concept. I really can understand how this would be something successful moving forward. Obviously, acquiring IP is the name of the game. And mobile, really the questions that come to my mind is ever since the Apple put on its restrictions in terms of ad revenue and information gathering, it is a lot harder for video game developers to target and place ads to be able to onboard players in the mobile eco space. Maybe that's something that won't affect Web3 as much when it starts to be brought more online, because players will be incentivized to go find those games rather than being targeted to try to onboard them directly. Who knows? We're going to have to see how it plays out. Obviously, they're focusing on some strategic pillars. They want to share more updates. They want to conquer mobile, this is where we're seeing the acquisition of the studio. They want to protect the utility of the Gala token, and they want to become more visible and increase user acquisition. Okay, makes sense. But there is another feature here that's related with Townstar that I think could be very beneficial to games in the future as well. Now, we know that they're going to be switching the currency, the town currency, the currency that's earned from playing Townstar is now going to be switched to Gala token, which again, this idea of a publisher token implemented in all of their games. You can see potential ideas of how once one game has run its useful life and new products are coming out in the future, we now have a method, or the developers now have a method, to be able to incentivize the shifting of value out of one game's ecosystem into the publisher token, which then could be used to be shifted into new future content. Again, content-driven business, hit-driven business. If games in the future aren't successful, you can see how the value would be impacted dramatically. But at least it gives players the ability to make the choice of whether they want to stay in one ecosystem or they want to transfer into another ecosystem. This is something that I started to get a little bit more familiar with when I was playing Mir 4 about a year plus ago, because they implemented both their in-game currency and Darksteel and the publisher token with WeMix. So you were able to farm out Darksteel, or convert it into Draco, use Draco to purchase WeMix token. And that's the model that was used. And as future games come out, you can then use that WeMix in other games going forward. You can see how all of these ecosystems can now be connected one way or another. And again, as a game's life cycle ends, that value can now be allowed to flow out of one economy and into another economy. And they're doing it through an exchange, a redemption. Really the same way that I guess you could say that traditional stock market companies that are traditionally listed on the stock market, if they're doing merger or acquisition, they would be able to use the value, the cash that they have on hand, to purchase other shares to merge the two companies. So the ideas are the same, but what intrigues me is how are players going to react? We've already seen gamers in world, especially in MMOs, traditionally act differently than how you would expect them to act in the real world. If you are leveling up your production skill, for example, in a video game, to create an even more powerful item or more powerful products in video games, typically those are sold quickly to get gold, to continue to farm, because XP is what is valuable more than the actual items that are produced. The real world is the opposite. If you're able to produce high quality products, those products are where the premium lies. So how players and player personas interact with in virtual worlds, copying the models that are used in the physical world, it's yet to be seen, but it may be something important to watch. I think it has a likelihood to succeed. We're going to have to keep a close eye on it. Spider Tanks, again, with their in-game Silk token, because Spider Tanks has had such a growth within Gala Games and within the broader Web3 gaming community, they're sticking with Silk for right now. That doesn't mean that Gala wouldn't be able to be used at a later point in time, but they're going to continue forward with this economy. And this is more of a bullish sign. They're really more saying that, hey, as an IP and as an in-game economy, Spider Tanks and Silk have a better chance to succeed. Let's not interrupt that by making a change with the currencies right now. But they're going to be hindered, I think, with the honor system. It's a good idea, like I was saying, where they're incentivizing quote-unquote positive actions to be able to maintain a healthy economy. But in this case, you're trying to control players. You're trying to control players' actions. You're trying to incentivize players' actions by allowing them to withdraw only if they do this one other thing. It's the idea between the carrot and the stick, right? I think the model it has potential to grow into the future, but it doesn't feel like we're in the right phase right now. I think with more exposure, with more onboarding of players, there will be a lot more opinions that come out that players are able to share, and Gala may be able to make some shifts there and adjust it going forward. But like I said earlier, honor system, big key development to keep an eye on with Spider Tanks. With Superior, it's all going to be about how are they going to launch the play and earn feature, which they're wanting to do in Q1 of 2023. Now, I believe from some of the reading that I've done before, most of this wants to occur through the idea of a challenge-based system, which I think, if you reference back to some of my other videos, I do think this is a good method, maybe not the best, but it's a good method to succeed. Because if you're making it to where only a certain portion of the community, the better players, the ones with more skill, more time invested, and more support inside the in-game ecosystem, if they're the ones that are able to earn because they are at that higher echelon, then it's easier to anticipate and to anticipate how much value will be extracted or be allowed to be extracted. And also how many players are able to earn then. So developers can then calculate ahead of time by setting up these bridges. The issue with competition or with skill-based, rewards, you're kind of seeing it already in Dookie Dash with Yuga Labs. There are immediately, once skill-based systems come in, there are methods that are developed in order to be able to try to become, obviously, the highest ranking player on the leaderboard, whether that is using unforeseen methods, coming up with new metas, maybe botting or hacking or using other non-ethical or moral, traditional aspects to increase your spot on the leaderboard. So it becomes a cat and mouse game. Now, if they build a very strong foundation that can support skill-based matchmaking or skill-based challenges, then this would be, a key to success. Regardless, the fun factor's there already with Superior, and they're barely getting started. So that's what intrigues me the most. Add in the competition-based system, and we could have something really unique going into the future. This is the part in time when we jump over to the music portion. And remember, the music and film portion of Gala is an area that I'm not too familiar with, so we're just going to quickly go through it in general. They're obviously going to be releasing with as many artists as possible, and they're going to be releasing tracks as well. They're aiming to have their nodes launch in Q1, and they're going to be tying it to a unique music token. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. Here's a list here that you can reference in the strategic update about who they've already partnered with and who have potentially different artists that are able to be coming out on the platform. But we're going to watch it play out. I believe Gala is going to be the the token that's going to be used to pay gas on their layer 1 blockchain that's going to be used for Gala Music and for Gala Films. So we're going to have to see how they grow it out together over the course of 2023. Whether or not they meet their goals is going to be important. Specifically, the question really comes up: are they aiming to do too much? Do they have the resources and the team and the development strength to be able to tackle 3 different areas of entertainment and try to bring them all under one hub? Maybe you can make an argument that, hey, because they're diversifying into different areas of entertainment, that they're more likely to survive because if one hits, it can support the rest. You could also say by splitting their time and their effort and not focusing on one, it could leave them a little bit more vulnerable. it's hard to say. It's very intriguing to have an idea where music, film, and games are all combined under one roof, under one publication company. Will it be successful? I don't know. But we'll be watching both music and film go forward. They obviously have already made some partnerships with some pretty big or unique studios for films specifically that will be coming out with Mark Wahlberg and The Rock. So what does this mean? Like I said, I'll leave that up to your interpretation. If you're more familiar with the music and the film side, do me a favor. Go ahead and leave a comment in the description below, or go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And I'd love to get your feedback. We'd be able to implement it a little bit more on future videos. They're obviously wanting to move forward with these three different areas of music, games, and film, and combine them together in what they're calling like their own metaverse for Gala Games through Vox, which I believe is going to be having its own land sale here in 2023. So it's difficult when we talk about land in the metaverse because we've seen it being tried a lot. We've been seeing it with Decentraland, with Sandbox, with a whole bunch of others. Will Gala be successful in creating its own metaverse where all of these come together? At this point, if you're going down the path of having games, music, and film under your platform, then it makes sense to try and attempt a metaverse in which all these different IPs can then interact. So again, we're gonna have to keep an eye on this. Fascinated to see how the land, brush, and map reveal occurs. Probably not going to see that until Q2 of 2023. So okay, now we need to get into the layer 1 blockchain that Gala will be implementing. Okay, their Geary blockchain is going to be its own layer 1 system that games, music, and film will interact with. Now, in order to pay for gas on this blockchain, you will be using Gala token. Again, more utility for the Gala token as this layer 1 blockchain gets rolled out. The idea being that with so much activity in games, music, and film, that it's going to need its own dedicated blockchain to be able to scale for the masses. This also brings up some major changes, specifically with nodes. They're going to be implementing an NFT feature where pretty much the license that's required for being receiving the benefits of a founder's node is now going to be distributed in an NFT format. We're going to be watching to see how this plays out, because if this model is successful, I wouldn't be surprised if other layer 1s use this same type of model to be able to track ownership, or to be able to allow players to exchange that ownership for running those nodes in a more decentralized fashion. So keep an eye on that. For the most part right now, I think the most important thing about the nodes is really understanding how the nodes are receiving their rewards, right? For providing the services of running a node, you're being released Gala token, and they pretty much use this to mirror the same type of halving schedule that Bitcoin did, slightly different. The token update that we get into right now is where we start to talk a little bit about it. Right now, we know that there's a significant amount of tokens that are out in the ecosystem. Now, the idea, and Gala Games had a little bit of a fumble with their terminology, and it took me a little while to kind of understand it, but let me see if I can break it down simply for you. Right now, Gala is being issued out to the founder node holders for providing services of running the network. Okay, because we have such an excess supply of Gala tokens, Gala is going to be implementing new features like we talked about with the mobile games to be able to burn that token. That token will be burnt and be taken out, but the total supply of Gala is never going to change. What this means is that in order to keep that supply equal to what it previously was stated at, while also burning tokens, this just means that the rewards for founder node holders are going to scale based on how tokens are burnt in the ecosystem. What this really sounds like they were trying to address is that at one point they expect that the amount that node holders would be rewarded wouldn't incentivize them to continue to operate the network. The reward wouldn't be enough. So instead, what they're doing is they're using this burn mechanic to continue to supply founder nodes into the future so that the longevity of the blockchain will continue. This is an argument that has been made in Bitcoin as well. What happens when the halving of Bitcoin gets reduced so much that the rewards every day isn't enough to incentivize miners? The argument was that the fees that were used on the network at that point in time, being so far in the future, will be what pays the node holders for operating the network. Now, since Gala's distribution doesn't go as far out as Bitcoin, that issue needs to be addressed a lot sooner. And this is an issue that this is what they're trying to address right now. This is the flow chart that they use to be able to describe how Gala flows throughout the system, the supply of Gala nodes. So if we start in the bottom right, it goes from the unminted tokens to the nodes, from the nodes to also to the Gala treasury, and end users then use that or acquire that Gala, use it in games, use it for services, and they end up burning it in that process. You can see here where the gems are entered into the system and in the dotted lines. All this represents is how gems, which are not technically inside the Gala ecosystem, will flow between users, the games, and the burn wallet. So we discussed this a little bit earlier with Dragon Strike, for example. So this flow chart makes a little bit more sense than what they originally put out, because they're using these dotted lines with the user burn with the gem system. You can understand, look, the Galas still are going to go into the system, into the burn address, but the total supply is not going to be reduced. And because it's not going to be reduced, it has to come out somewhere. If it goes into the burn address, it also is going to be upping the total amount of unminted tokens because a previous amount was burnt. And those unminted would then continue to incentivize node holders, and the whole cycle continues to perpetuate into the future. Here's where they break down their emissions and the halving system. They have a time-based system, and they're wanting to switch it to a supply-based system, but they're going to need to do a governance vote for that. And a supply-based system can have a lot of impacts, both good and bad, but generally, again, if it switches to a burn-based system or a supply-based system, then the halvenings will change based on how much total supply there is, and that will make it a little bit more fluid, a little bit more stable over the course of time as volatility, as user engagement goes up and down dramatically as this entire platform gets scaled into the future. Here again is that flow chart, but simply following the minting cycle, right? So it gets minted, flows out, end user, burn address. You can see it play out. Here's a little bit of a description on the halving systems. The current schedule is based on time, just like Bitcoin. The proposed schedule is based on supply. And if you combine, if it switches to a supply system and a burn system, then you can see how the graph extends. It's a much longer tail and many more years for the ecosystem to continue to develop going forward. I'm assuming, again, they're trying to incentivize node holders right now. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of node holders are trying to sell or get out of their positions. You know, maybe with the release of this information that's changed their perspective. Definitely something for me to research in the future. But in general, this is their release plan. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And really, if we watch this play out over the course of all of 2023, I think it'll be a good method to see, hey, what are the areas that they successfully delivered on? What did they push out to the future? And what did they just straight up cancel? You know, the things I'm going to be keeping my eye on, you know, Superior, you know, coming from the game side of it, you know, film and music, I'm just going to slowly let the information hit me as it comes out. But sticking to the game side of it, superior because I believe it's one of the more funner games in all of Web3. Watching the play and earn mechanics get implemented there is number one on my priority list. The evolution of the honor system with spider tanks could have a bigger impact, not just for Gala Games, but for all games in the field in Web3 gaming. This methodology, what? That's not the right words at all. This theory on how to control the inflows and outflows is going to be something that every game is going to try to solve. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Obviously, Gala token, probably number 3. And for the most part, for most people, will be the thing that they watch the most. Gala has committed to burning a lot of their Gala token. They needed to do so. They know they needed to do so. Now they're going to be able to tie that burning with revenue generation, which could lead to an overall positive impact for the ecosystem. So I hope you all enjoyed the recap of the Gala Games strategic 2023 release plan. Please do me a favor, hit that like and sub button if you enjoyed the content.